Hey everyone, I'm gonna move our little faces out of the way here. I'm Savannah Zona Wyker. My maiden name is Zona. It is now my middle name for any of you that might have known me before I got married. I graduated in 2016, got the Georgia Scholarship, went to UCF, graduated I don't even remember. I was 20 when I graduated, so it's like a weird calculation year thing. But I graduated cum laude from UCF, go Knight, charge on. So did Lawrence, so he'll say that too. I'm a real estate agent in Orlando, Florida. I can do the whole state of Florida, but I live in Lake Nona, which is a part of Orlando. And I've lived here ever since I came to UCF. Met my husband here, kind of just got stuck here. So that's about me. I'll talk more about me as we go through the presentation, but I'll let Lawrence just introduce himself and then I'll get started.
Thank you, Savannah. So my name is Lawrence Heisler. Hey, everybody, go Knights. So I'm also a grad. I went to undergrad and also went and completed my master's degree at UCF. I also played baseball there for a couple years. So super excited to be part of this. I'm excited to be able to give back and to help any of you that are thinking about or in the process of buying a home.
Okay, so I'm gonna go, I have to admit people now, Okay, so I'm gonna go through my presentation. I just wanna give a few disclaimers. So like I said, I am in Florida. Real estate is different in every state. The majority of it is the same, but if I say something and you're like, that doesn't sound like what I know, it might not be. I only have my license in Florida, so I can only talk about the Florida market. I'll give a few disclaimers for things that could differ and things that you should look out for, but just know that if you are living somewhere else, to admit them too. Then they should make it where you can like dual host. I don't know why Zoom doesn't do that. But
yeah, sorry about that. Is there any way that you can share your screen, but I can be the host? Do we know?
I don't know.
No.
Like
okay.
I'll just keep admitting them. It's fine. It's like a click.
Okay. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Okay, awesome. So another disclaimer, I am not an attorney and I'm not a CPA. So anything I say about tax or law, just know that that's just me, Savannah, talking. That's not supposed to give you any legal advice or tax advice because legally I'm not allowed to do either of those. And yeah, okay, so let's get started. We'll wait for questions at the end. Lawrence and I will both do our little spiels and then we can go through anything you guys are comfortable with or uncomfortable with. And if there's something in depth you want to go through, we can schedule a Zoom off of this and go into your situation with either Lawrence or I or both of us. Okay, perfect. This is a quote that I love to say every time I do this presentation. If you don't own a home, buy one. If you own a home, buy another one. If you own two homes, buy a third. And lend your relatives the money to buy a home. Home ownership is part of the American dream. It is part of the best thing about our country, that you can actually buy land, watch it appreciate, and capitalize off of the game. It's amazing, and I'll talk more about how that builds wealth in general, but this is how we're gonna start off. Ooh, hello. Okay, this is a generic overview of what we're about to go through. Number one, we're gonna understand the market. And then of course, if we were talking one-on-one, I would go through your wants, your needs, what we can get in certain price ranges and in this market. And then we're gonna talk about timeline and how long it takes to buy a house, what steps does it cost money for, when can you walk away, all that jazz. Determining your budget, I'm gonna only talk a little bit about it because I'll let Lawrence do the majority of that. I'll talk about how much it costs to buy a home. And then, of course, we would start shopping if you were with me as a buyer right now. And then I'll talk about what happens after that, after we actually find the house. Oh my gosh. Okay, so first thing is timeline. So typically I ask you, hey, when is your lease up? When do you need to sell your home by? Do you need to start by a new school year? Do you have a new job starting? All of that's really important. You never want to be caught in a situation where you no longer can buy a house because your timeline was cut short. So I have a client right now, Lawrence knows him, his name is Mike, and he contacted me 30 days before his lease was up. And he had to give 30 days notice. And I said, so you need to find a house today? And we actually did find a house that day and it was great, but then the deal fell through and then he ended up having to find another rental. And obviously I would have advised him differently, and now he knows to contact me a little bit before his lease is up so that he can have the option whether he can find something to buy, which is obviously the ideal, or if he needs to renew his lease. So that's just a little tidbit of it. Of course, it's different case by case. And then communication, always ask your agent, how they best communicate, and then tell them how you best communicate. I have some clients who need me to text them every time I send an email, et cetera, et cetera. So I always ask about that. And then criteria. So what you want in a house is going to be different from what you need in a house. Do not think that your first house is going to be your dream house. The average American moves every 8 years. I've moved 14 times before I even came to college. I was a military brat, so I moved all the time. So just don't think that you're going to get everything you need, because you can always edit the house. You can always add something in that you like. Just be open-minded. That doesn't mean you have to get a fixer-upper, but I like to set expectations before we start looking, because if you have 150 grand as a budget, you're not going to get every beautiful light fixture and marble in your bathrooms that you want with a pool in your backyard. And some people expect that. You guys are all smart. You're from Georgia Snow, so I don't expect you to want that. But we would go over that as well. So let's talk about the market. If you've heard anything about the market right now, you've been hearing low interest rates and low inventory. So let's talk about it. So buyers are experiencing low rates, like I just said, and Lawrence will touch more on it. In end of 2020, we were in the 2s, which is unheard of. Right now, we're in the 3s to 4s, which is still amazing. You can still afford a bunch more as a buyer simply because of those rates, because that's gonna deal with your monthly payment. So Lawrence, even if he says, hey, you have a 300 grand as your budget, it means a monthly payment for around what a $300,000 house gives you. So they take into account a few different things to calculate what you can afford every month. But the low rates help your monthly payment be able to afford more because there's less interest in that monthly payment, right? So low rates. We also have low inventory, which means it's very competitive. I'll talk some stats later, but just picture toilet paper during COVID. That is what we're dealing with right now for houses. People are fighting tooth and nail, but because of the low interest rates, you have the leverage to do that. So you're not losing out a bunch of money, you know what I mean? So if it's a $300,000 house, you offer $10,000 over, one, it still has to appraise for that value, which we'll get into, but because of the interest rates, you're able to do that. And I can talk more about that a little bit. Cultural effects with COVID, what's that affecting? With timelines, typically it takes 30 to 45 days to close on a house. That's if you're getting a loan. If you're cash, you just need to have title, be able to say, hey, yes, these sellers actually own that house and can pass it on to you. That's what title does. That's really all you need to do, and get your inspection out of the way. If you're having a loan though, you need 30 to 45 days for underwriting and for all the loan processors to do their thing. Right now, I'm trying to push it to 35 days rather than that 30 cusp, because the influx of buyers is so high that some loan companies are just having, not trouble keeping up, but they just need a few more days. That's really the only thing that I've seen being affected because of the high demand. If you're looking at new construction, which I also can help you with, that is going slower. One, because lumber costs are up 40%. And what do you build houses out of? Wood. Even if they're built out of block, you still have wood for the stairs, wood for the studs, wood for so much stuff. So that's been slowed down because of costs are so inflated, and because supply chain from getting appliances, granite, different laminates, all different types of things, even piping to get to a house, the supply chain is so backed up due to COVID that timelines are stretched out for new construction, and the prices have been going up, which means people aren't going to go buy a new construction for way inflated of a price when they can go buy a resale, right? Okay. And went over that. So sellers obviously have the other side of the coin. Because of the low inventory, they know they have the power. They know that everyone's going to be at their beck and call, doing whatever they need to do. It's like when someone puts toilet paper on a shelf, you know that that's going to sell. You don't really have to worry about it. Things are still sitting on the market if they're not marketed correctly. And right now it can actually hurt you worse to market incorrectly, because if something stays on the market for over a week, people are like, what's wrong with it? So if you market it incorrectly originally, you're kind of set off on the wrong foot. So just as a note, even though you guys are probably just thinking about buying, sellers have a very important job. So if you see something on the market right now for over 24 days, 24 is the average right now until it goes under contract, that's when the ticker stops. If you see something for over that, it's either really high price, really low price, something's weird with it, and I can help you discern that. But just know, if you're looking on whatever forums you're looking on, that's something's weird with it. Things are going very quick. There's an average amount of 4 offers on every house right now across the United States. That's insane. And that usually happens within the first few days. And that means when someone puts in an offer on something, they're saying, hello, I have this contract. I am offering you $300,000 for your house. Will you take it? Then the seller has 4 other people. So you're competing against all of them offering money, right? So that's why we'll talk about how to get a competitive edge, but that's what submitting your offer means. You ask me, your agent, to say, hey, let's write up the contract. I'm allowed to edit 55 different spaces in the contract because I'm not an attorney, so I can't legally interpret it, but I can edit it. It's annoying. So is everything selling? No. Still, things are sitting on the market. As I said, is this a good time? Some people are saying it's a horrible time to buy. I will tell you why that is not true. And I'm not doing it as a sales pitch. Most of you probably don't even live near me, so you know it's not a sales pitch. One is because I always say if it's a good time for you to buy, it is a good time to buy. Buying and homeownership is always good, no matter how you can do it and when you can do it. So if it's a good time for you, great. Another reason it's a good time to buy is because of those interest rates. So here's the market right now, sellers, buyers, but the interest rates are so low that it brings you kind of into a win-win. If there's less buyers in the market, the interest rates are going to go up because competition goes down. And then if there's more houses on the market and inventory goes to a steady with the buyers, then rates are still going to go up. So the federal government is trying to get the rates to go down to incentivize people to go out and buy houses with the low inventory. That is what they're doing to level out the market, right? Because they kind of dictate the interest rates, and Lawrence can go into that if you guys have questions. But all I'm saying is, if you're going to wait until there's less competition or more houses on the market, the interest rates are probably going to go up with that fact. And if there's more houses on the market, all those buyers are still going to get them. So all in all, it's going to fluctuate no matter what. You're going to end up either paying over asking right now in this market, or you're going to not be able to pay over asking because the interest rate's going to inflate your payment. So it's a fine time to buy. You just have to fight for it and have a thick skin, and just make sure I have a thick skin, and I do, and I will fight for you. So just to display your fears. Will I find a home? Yes, but you'll have to fight, and you'll have to have your heart broken maybe a few times just to set expectations. So here's some numbers. I did the whole US because I don't know how many of you are in Florida. The average interest rate right now in Orlando is 3.07. In general America, it's like 3.75 is the higher end of that. Appreciation rate across America is 9.9, which is crazy. That means in the last year, houses have appreciated 9.9%. So if you owned a home, you would have gained that much value in your home. It's just free money, essentially, because it's just in your savings account in your house. It's expected to go up to about 11. In some places where I live in Orlando, it's been about 16% appreciation rate. And I'm sure in South Florida, it's been similar because it's been insane. Inventory across the US is down 23%. In Orange County, it is down 65%. So welcome to my life. Inventory being down means there's less houses on the market than there was last year. And if you knew about last year was still pretty competitive, but not as much as it is now. We have not seen a market this competitive since 1999. So crazy stuff. The average price for a home in the United States is $313,000. That's high for my area. It's around $285,000. And that's up, like that says, 15.8%. So that's a big jump this year, and that's because obviously appreciation is going up, interest rates are down, and inventory is down. This is why it's not like the crash. I know I'm throwing a lot at you. I don't know if any of you remember the crash. I do, because my mom was a real estate agent during it. We lived in Missouri, and our house went under because she couldn't afford it because the market crashed. So we went bankrupt. So I have very intimate knowledge of how this affected people. But I also want to dissuade any fears that it's going to happen right now. Why people think it is if you look at this graph and you see my little mouse, this is kind of where price was and how demand was back then. And it looks very similar now. But this is only a snapshot of the last around 20 years, right? Like 13 years, another person. Okay, so the market fluctuates. There's only been 2 crashes in the last 150 years, the Great Depression and then in 06, right? In 06, there was something fundamentally wrong with the industry. People were getting given loans that should not have been given loans. If you've seen The Big Short, it's pretty accurate of what happened. Loan companies were not doing what they should. They were just racking in all the money and being like, okay, well, we'll deal with that when we deal with that. Then they had to deal with that because then for 4 years, nothing happened. So that's what happened in 06. People were getting loans and then they were house poor because their monthly payment was so expensive and they couldn't afford the payments. So then it crashed. But if you look at it, it only took 4 years to come back. During that time for those families, I know it felt really long for me, but in the grand scheme of things, if you kept your job, if you had a reasonable monthly payment, you would have been fine. And then within 4 years, you got all your value back. So that's not that scary either if you look at the grand scheme of things. Also, 2006 to 2021, what is that, about 13, 14 years? So, because it crashed like in the middle of that. My math's not bad, I promise. So, of course, things are going to appreciate and things are going to inflate over that 13, 14 year period. So just because the prices look the same now, they should. It's been 14 years of appreciation and inflation, and the market's going to fluctuate. So if you wanted to sway any, I have a crazy uncle that always tells me the market's going to crash. You probably have one too. Tell him that. If you want this graph, I can email it to you and you can be the king of the dinner table. Okay, so like I said, low interest rates is more buyers. This is a stat, it might be a little different now because the interest rates have ticked up a little bit, but based from the interest rates that we had in 2015 to now, you can afford $40,000 more house than you could in 2015, solely based on the interest rates. Lawrence told me that stat, so I'm sorry if I stole that from you just now. So it's a win-win right now. Even though it's a seller's market, buyers have the power to compete. That's why I am still encouraging my buyers to buy if it's right for them. Average offers, I said 4. I just had 2 listings. One of them had 9 offers in 2 days. The other one had 12 offers in 3 days. And we picked one that was 13 grand over for one of them. So it's been insane. So what you pay. If you have a buyer's agent, you don't pay them. So you don't pay me, or you don't pay your real estate agent. What's important about that is that it's a 2-way street of trust. Because if I don't get paid until you find a house, close on the house, get the keys, if you're me, and I mean using as in manipulating me the entire time just to essentially screw me over at the end, that's not great. And I've had people do that to me because I don't, some agents have you like sign a contract saying, hey, you're working with me, just understand you have to actually like written wise terminate me, all that stuff. I don't do that because I like to just have the trust and I like to work with people I trust and I expect that from people. But just know that if you're working with an agent, they don't get paid. They don't get paid hourly. I work solely on commission. So you don't pay me, which is great because the seller pays me. The seller is the one marketing their house. Just like you go to the grocery store, they have to pay for the commercials. They have to pay for the bags and the lights and the overhead. They have to take that risk for you to come into the store. Same thing with the seller. They're paying for all of the marketing and all of the fees for you to come to their store, right? So choosing financing, again, I'm going to breeze through this because Lawrence is going to go over it, but the step 1 to buying a house is getting pre-approved. I do not like to show people houses until they're pre-approved. It's not because I'm rude. It is because I have seen too many people get their hearts broken, especially in this market. So a pre-approval letter is you say, hey, Lawrence, hey, Mr. Loan Officer, here is my W-2, my 1099, all my stuff. This is my income. This is my debt. What can I afford? And then they tell you, based on these preliminary things, this is what you can afford. The reason you want that is because to submit an offer for a house, you have to submit your pre-approval with that offer. You have to prove to the sellers that you have the money. You've been approved by someone that will give you the loan, that will try to give you the loan, because it's not promised during that pre-approval, right? It's just a kind of like, okay, you kind of got your ticket in, let's see if you graduate kind of thing. It's like an admissions letter. You have to submit that when you submit your offer. So if you don't get pre-approved, I showed a buyer a house and he was not pre-approved. He was my friend. So I just was like, okay, I'll try it. He comes to look at a house with me, sees it, falls in love with it. 4 other people that same day saw that house, fell in love with it. They submitted an offer. He couldn't get pre-approved within the next 2 hours because it takes some time. The house is already gone before he could even submit an offer because he didn't have that letter. So get pre-approved. Step 1. And then you're going to know your limits. I don't want to show you a house that's 400 grand where you can only afford 2, or vice versa, where you're looking at $200,000 houses and actually you can afford 4, but you didn't know that because you didn't talk to Lawrence. So we're going to find the best loan for you. And again, I'm going to breeze past that because Lawrence will talk more about that. Okay. These are some other fees. Some of these are part of what's called closing costs, and we'll talk about that a little bit. An earnest money deposit or an escrow or a good faith deposit, that's one of those little red flags for any of you that aren't in Florida. It's different per state. In some states, they can keep it. Some states, they have to give it back. It's different. But in Florida, earnest money, escrow, good faith deposit, they all mean the same thing. And what it is my favorite analogy, is an engagement ring. So my husband's name is Ryan. So for this analogy, Ryan is the buyer, I'm the seller, right? Because I'm the one who's given the permission to buy the house. I'm the house, I guess. So you go to see the house, you see me, and you're like, ooh, that's a really good house, really like her, it's really cute. And then you say, okay, I'm gonna propose. If you propose without a ring, it means nothing really, right? So you don't have any skin in the game. You're not risking anything. You didn't go out and spend any money. So when Kanye proposed to Kim, he bought a big ring. The bigger the ring, the more enticing it is. So you say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is my promise to you that I'm going to buy your house. I'm going to marry you, because the final closing date is the marriage. And they say, okay, great. So they take it and it goes into an unbiased third-party account. Title holds it. So it's not like the seller gets it and goes out and buys a Gucci bag. It's all safe. They get it once everything closes, but it's in that account just in case something goes wrong. For example, if Ryan, my now husband, if he during our engagement would have cheated on me, I would have been like, oh, I'm keeping the ring, don't you play, right? Because like he screwed up. I would keep the ring. If I was like, oh, I'm getting really cold feet, I don't know if I can marry you, I'm so sorry, the right thing to do is give back the ring. So that's a good way to look at it as a rule of thumb. It can get into arbitration and bad things and legal matches. I've never seen that happen to me or anyone close to me, but just same thing. If you cheat on them, they cheat on you, vice versa. So ways you can get it back. In Florida, during the inspection period is the number one way. The inspection period is the first 1 to 15 days, and that's negotiable. That's a way you can entice your offers. You can put 5-day inspection, 7-day inspection, whatever you want. It's typically 1 to 15 days. So during that time, you as the buyer can get whatever inspector you want in there. You can get contractors in there to give you quotes on things, anything that you need to do to verify that you do want that house, that it's good. The roof's not leaking, the granite isn't cracked and about to fall off, all those little things, right? You get a licensed inspector, and your realtor should have vendors to recommend to you. You get a licensed inspector in there. If he says, oh my gosh, like this roof is leaking or this light socket is gonna electrocute everyone, you're allowed to walk away from the deal in those first 15 days as an ambiguous term. So during those first 15 days, you get escrow back. And it doesn't have to be because inspection came back bad. It can be for any reason. They don't need to know. In the state of Florida, you don't have to give a reason. If you get cold feet, you're allowed to walk away. Of course, we don't recommend that. But during inspection, if you find something, inspection is typically around $500 when it's all included, and I'll get to that next. So you've spent the $500, so that hurts a little bit to walk away, but it's better than finding $10,000 worth of damage and then having to do that after you close. It's better to have spent the $500 and find out about the 10 grand versus spending the 10 grand later. So that's one way you can get it back. Another way, if you're getting a loan, your contract should be contingent upon you receiving that loan. Because again, that pre-approval doesn't mean you're promised it. It's essentially your admission ticket. But underwriting, who are the big, bad, scary people, kind of in my mind, they have to make sure you're going to graduate. They're your professors looking through all your documents saying, okay, yes, we can actually give this buyer this loan. If they, at the end of 30 days, say, hey, we really can't give you this loan, we're so sorry, but you're not qualified, you get the escrow back because it wasn't your fault. You tried, right? The third most common way is appraisal contingency. So an appraisal is when the bank asks you, hey, we need to have a licensed appraiser who's verified to be able to appraise values of homes. They need to go out and verify that this value that you're trying to buy this house for, that it's actually worth that. Because otherwise the loan company is giving you a huge loan, and if you default on that loan, they need to know that they can resell it for what you say it's worth, for what you're offering on it, because otherwise they're out of a lot of money, right? So the appraiser goes out and he's like, actually, I know you're trying to pay 300 grand for this, but it's only worth 250. That would be a very rare situation. But you can go, whoa, because guess what? That difference of 50 grand, the loan company is not going to give you. You have to bring it to closing if you still want that house, because if the loan can't give it to you, where are you going to get that money? Where's the seller going to get that money? So you can negotiate with the seller and say, hey, can we meet in the middle? Can we come down? Like, what can we do? Can we get a second opinion? But appraisals usually cost about $500. So if you want to hire another one, you can leverage with the seller, and that's a kind of get there when we get there kind of thing. But you can try to negotiate. But if it doesn't work out and the seller just won't budge, and I've had that happen, you can walk away, because obviously the seller was promising that it was worth what it wasn't worth. So those are the three main ways. There's some other contingencies. Anything that your contract is contingent upon is a way that you can walk away and get your escrow back typically. But those are the three major ways. Some other ways are HOA. Some HOAs have to verify you. Another way is if you have to sell one house before moving to another one, your contract is contingent upon that. But most people on this call probably won't have that issue right now. So those are the three main ways you can get that engagement ring. You can get it given back to you when you break up the engagement, right? But otherwise, they keep it. If everything passes, they're going to keep that escrow because they just wasted all that time. They have to remarket the house. They need a little bit of collateral, right? Okay, so that's escrow. It's typically 1 to 10%. I say typically very loosely because you can propose with as big of a ring as you want. It doesn't really matter. The bigger it is, the more enticing it is, right? The more money, the more enticing. But there's some more risk for you, of course. So on a $300,000 house, I typically just put down $5,000. And the escrow is taken out of your down payment. So think of it like this. If Ryan had saved up, my husband had saved up 10 grand for the wedding and $1,000 was budgeted for my ring, now he has 9 grand left to spend on the wedding. So total 10 grand to marry. So 10 grand at closing, if that helps you guys. And your down payment, depending on your loan, is different. It could be 3% of the house, 5% of the house, or whatever you're able to put down over that amount. So that is escrow. That was a lot, but that's the most important part, and people get nervous about that because that's a lot of money. Next, we're going to go to home inspection. Home inspection is typically $300 to $450, and again, that's when you have the guy. My guy's a guy, so I'm using a lot of male pronouns because most of the people I use are guys, so don't think I'm rude because, you know, the political correctness gets hard sometimes in presentations, y'all. So he comes in, he says, hey, you got a pool, you got a crawl space, which is the different foundation. I got to do a lot of stuff. It's going to be about $450, but if it's a typical house, it's usually around $300. And he comes in and tells you everything wrong with the house, why you don't want to buy it. There's going to be something wrong with every house you see. It's a house. If you go into your parents' house, there's probably something that's not very kosher with it, right? There's probably like one electrical socket that might not work, one light switch that's like a little finicky. And you can ask the seller to lower the purchase price or give you a credit at the end, which is essentially just taking money out of your down payment that you have to pay. You can ask for that in this market. It's kind of hard to do, but it's for your safety. It's for your security to know that, okay, this is a good house to buy, or, not get into that, right? Not get into bed with that. So it's $300 to $450. He'll give you everything you need to send to your homeowner's insurance so that they can either take deductions off or that they can make a plan that's specifically for your house. But they need to verify that certain things are to code, right? So you should get an inspector in there. Even if you're buying as is, unless you don't want home insurance, you should get an inspector in there to prove different things to your insurance company. My guy, I love him. It's him and his son that I use. It's a very small company, but they've been in the business for like 25 years. He does a wind mitigation report for free, which you don't really have to worry about right now, but that's also for your insurance company. You get like $700 to $800 off your policy every year if this comes back clean. So he does that for free for me because I give him all my business. And then for the WDO, that's wood destroying organism. It's called the termite inspection because everyone thinks termites, but it's things like wood rot, and there's other critters that eat wood, not just termites. So if you do want that, if you're getting a VA loan if you're a veteran, you have to get that. It's required to get that loan. That's typically 90 to 125. If he sees something wrong, if he sees termite activity, he's going to tell you even if you don't pay for that. But if you do want the full written report to give you leverage with the seller and to prove to your bank and or your insurance company that, you know, what's going on, you want to add that on when we're there. So that's important. So altogether, that's around $500 depending on the house. And then we look at appraisal. I put all these on here because these are things you could lose if you do walk away from the deal. Appraisals typically rolled into closing costs. Closing costs are typically about 3% of the purchase price, depending on your loan. And that's things like the appraisal, like survey fees, different title fees, proration of taxes, There's a few different things on there, and they change per house. So I don't like to give a generic thing, but it's typically rule of thumb around 3% that you're going to need in savings plus your down payment. So that appraisal is typically considered in closing costs. It's around $300 to $500. That's paid to the lender to prove to them, hey, this house is worth what it's worth. And again, you can negotiate that if it comes back low. If it comes back high, don't tell anyone. Don't clap, just clap to yourself. Don't tell the seller, because then they feel like they lost out, and then all of a sudden they have no wiggle room with you because they know you got a deal. If it comes back high, good for you. It's very rare in this market for it to come back high, but it's happened. And then there's going to be a credit report. That's typically $50 to $100. It's just what the lender pays to pull the credit from all the sources. And then the broker's fee is $395. That's technically the only thing you'll see paid to me. It's not really coming to me. It's coming to my brokerage. And this is typically $300 to $600, depending on anyone you work with. If you work with any brokerage, which you'll have to, even if you work with the listing agent. And that's just to pay for our admin fees, because for 7 years, we have to hold different things with the county and with the state and file things correctly. So that's kind of what that costs for that. If you're a veteran, I waive that. And then typically I give it as a closing gift. So you really don't have to worry about it, but sometimes it's in there. But these 5 things are what you could really lose if you do walk away from the deal. And then escrow, you might get it back, might not. So all that together, in the middle of that range is about $1,500. And then plus your escrow, because that's variable, plus your down payment, because that's variable. That's around the cash needed to buy a house. So if you're looking at a $300,000 house and you're putting 3 to 3.5% down, and it's a single family home, which means the typical house you think of, not a townhome, not a condo, not anything like that, you're probably going to need 17 to 20 grand. And that includes your down payment, like I said, earnest money, and these fees. But the $1,500 is really what you're looking at if you walk away and if you lose some escrow or something like that. But typically it's just the inspection, the appraisal. So about $1,000 that you really will lose if you walk away after appraisal, if you do get that escrow back. So just as a note, and you can screenshot whatever you want if anyone wants to screenshot things. Okay, this is a more in-depth process once we find the house. So great, you find the house, anything in green you pay money at, you find the house, we write an offer. In this market, there's really no negotiating a counter. So what I say is offer your highest and best off the bat. If you're gonna kick yourself that night because you could have offered $1,000 more or you could have cut down inspection period, do it. If you're like, hey, you know what, it's not the one for me, God doesn't have that in my plan because we offered the best thing we could have, then that's fine. That's fine. I'm not gonna pressure you to do more than you're comfortable with. I'm just gonna tell you how to fight best, right? So you write an offer. If they negotiate, they do. They probably won't in this market. Then they say, okay, we're going with your offer. Great job. The offer's accepted. The first step is to submit your escrow. That's within the first 3 days. You can submit it with your offer. I don't like to, because why would you worry about wiring money before you even know it's accepted? It's weird to me. So I always do it within the first 3 days. And you go to your bank and you say, hey, let's wire this money. Always verify wiring instructions. Always call. If you know the lady's name is Katie, and then on the phone, she sounds like an 80-year-old Indian man, it's probably not Katie at Fidelity National Title, just as a rule of thumb, because they just don't think. You just got to think, guys. So that's the first step. Once that's done, you start removing contingencies. So of course, that first one is inspection. So you go do the inspection during that first time, you pay him at the time of inspection because it's your vendor, right? He just gets paid to do a service and he's on his way, gives you the report, done. And then in the background, you're applying for a mortgage within the first 5 days. That's when you actually say, hey, Lawrence, let's apply, let's lock in my rate, because the rate that you're quoted isn't the rate that you're going to have potentially. And then they pull your credit, a hard pull, and then they schedule your appraisal. I wait to schedule appraiser and tell your real estate agent this. Wait to schedule appraisal until after inspection is done. Because like I said, you can walk away during inspection. So I just had a guy find something wrong with the whole plumbing system, so he walked away. If the appraisal was done before the inspection period was over, he would have lost $1,000 instead of just losing the $500. So just wait until after that inspection period is over, and that's why I like to do shorter ones as well. So you pay for the appraisal in that step. In the background, underwriting is going on. That's them looking through your coat closet, asking how many times you eat at Chick-fil-A, all the crazy stuff. And then you're going to do a survey on the property. Not you, but the county comes out and does a survey. You pay for that, and that's paid as a closing cost as well. It's typically like a couple $100, if that. That's when they come out with a tape measure. and they measure your whole thing, make sure that there's no fence on your property, that all the sprinklers are on your side of the property, there's no encroachments, nobody living in your backyard that shouldn't be, all that good stuff. They verify that you are buying X amount of land, right? In the background also, there's title insurance and examination. I mentioned this briefly. So title insurance is where escrow is held, and they're who you sit down with at the closing table. They're the ones in charge of making sure the seller has equitable title to transfer to you, the buyer. Because if they find that, oh, there's actually a weird debt out on the property, there's overdue taxes, there's an open permit, if they find stuff like that, we have to take care of that before you close, because otherwise it's your responsibility, and we don't want that. We want everything clean. We want to make sure their old aunt that died and passed them the house doesn't have a relative that's actually going to come claim the house, because crazy things happen. So no ghosts of Christmas past are going to come up. They say, yep, you're clear, title is good. And then they say, okay, you're good. And then your loan says, okay, you're good, you're clear to close. Those are the magic 3 words. That means you passed everything, every hurdle. We can sigh relief, and then we just sign the papers, you get the keys, and you submit the rest of your closing costs, including the rest of your down payment. Okay, strengthening your offer. I know I'm breezing, so sorry guys, I'm taking a lot of time. Sorry, Lawrence. Okay, strengthening your offer. Like I said, lowering inspection period, shortening inspection period is a really strong way. I've been doing 5 to 7 days right now, and you can totally get it done in that time. So don't think that that's scary. Sometimes it is, but I typically, contract days, the term contract days are a little weird. And usually, even if I say 5, it kind of means 7 because of the way the days are counted. But usually the agent doesn't look at it, and I just have a little loophole. So we'll go over that when we need to, but just little ways you can strengthen. There's another thing called the escalatory clause, which I've been using for every single one of the offers I do. It is a way to submit your highest without going way over other offers, because obviously you don't know what the other offers are. They're not going to tell you, right? It's like poker. They keep it all to themselves. But let's say the house is 300 grand as our arbitrary number, and you know that you could pay 310 if it appraises for that. And if, you could afford the 310 monthly payment. So you say, okay, I want to offer 310, but what if someone only offered 302? I don't want to pay $8,000 extra dollars, right? Going in blind. What I do is I say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we are offering $300,000 asking price, good offer, and we will beat any offer you have on the table by $500 up to 310. That way, you beat out any other offer by 500. You can do 1,000, any number you want. You can beat out any other offer. You can slay your competition while making sure that you're okay. So I've been doing that with everything. It's just a way to keep you safe, but also tell them your highest and best, right? Without overdoing it. Another thing I've been doing, every single offer that I've gotten accepted for my buyers, or any offer that I, as a listing agent, the person who is selling the house, I'm the agent selling the house, anything that my sellers and I have accepted has this contingency. I've been writing it in, and it says, if appraisal comes in low, buyer agrees to pay X amount over appraised value, of course, not to exceed purchase price. So let's just say it's a $300,000 house. We did the 310. It comes in at 305. And we're like, whew. Sellers know that if you're paying 10 grand over, it might not appraise, because it's probably not worth that. It's just the bidding war got it there, right? So they know that negotiation's already over, because if it came in at 305, great. If you agreed to pay 2,000 over, now you're paying 307. Wonderful. If it comes in at 309, you know you're only paying 1,000, because then you hit the cap of the 310, even if it's a $2,000 contingency, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. You can ask me questions about that later. That has won me every single offer that I've done. I've done it with $1,000 over appraisal, and I've done it with $5,000 over appraisal. Sometimes it doesn't win, because someone just comes in and wants to pay ridiculously over, and fine, that wasn't the house for us. But that's what I've been doing with every offer. I think it's necessary to win right now, because things aren't appraising. Appraisers go on past sales. That's what they look at. And they don't take into account everything that you as a buyer or me as an agent will. We know market value. We know how pretty a house is, right? Sometimes they can take some of that into account, but appraisers are human. If they have a bad day and they come in and they say, oh, wow, my dog just died, I hate my life. They come in, they see this pretty house, they're in a bad mood, they might appraise it lower. That's happened to me. A guy was just not nice to me and appraised it very low, and I knew my house was that value. So it happens. It also happens where people are really nice and they appraise it for what they, they look at the condition, they go, wow, this is crazy. But some people don't take into account a new roof. Some people take into account square footage a little differently, even though they're all trained the same. Learning is different for different people. So just as an example, that's why I like to do the appraisal, to pay over appraisal, to offer to do that. Because if it comes in at the value you already said, great, you don't have to pay that $2,000 cash over. But if it comes in low, they already know they're insured, the seller is insured to get that extra $2,000. So that's what I've seen. They really like that as a insurance policy, essentially, on their house. It beats out your offer even if someone paid a lot more over you. And it proves you have the cash. But you also have to have the cash to do it. So there's just a few ways. There's other ways. That's a case-by-case basis. I don't want to give away, one, all my secrets, and two, take up too much time. So I'll stop there. Those are a few ways. About Keller Williams, very briefly, we're the largest real estate company in North America by both sales agents and volume. So we don't just talk the talk by how many people we hire. We actually walk the walk and we sell the most. Keller Williams is known for their education. That's why I love educating and why I win a lot of bids, because I know how to edit that contract. My broker is a real estate attorney and he teaches classes about 3 times a week and I go to almost all of them. Like I'm constantly learning. I don't have my attorney's license or my law license, what's it called? Pass the bar. I don't know what the technical terms are, but I know my stuff. I'm good at what I do. We're all overachievers here, so you guys can relate. Keller Williams is the #1 tech company. That was above Apple, Microsoft a couple years ago for the technology that our CEO has created for real estate. We don't sell your information. We're a privately owned company, so that's been really great. I say so a lot, don't I? It's okay. I'm just listening to myself talk for an hour. That's what we've been doing. We're the top workplace for women. I think we were number 3 out of 5 last year. I forget the exact number, but it rocks. We also do commercial real estate. If you know someone that needs a restaurant, a warehouse, a bank, a dental office, we do that. And that also gives us a lot of leads for other things because we know before other people what's going to be in that community. So that's really cool. We're #1 for company culture on Indeed. And our motto is God, family, business. We do not risk our reputation for a commission. It's not worth it. My team actually does sell more in Orlando. This doesn't apply to all of you, but just so you know that I do walk the walk. This is my brokerage. My broker owns 2 more of them, 1 there and 1 there. So I'm comparing myself with literally my sister brokerages, and we do more in millions. That's listings, that's sales. I also want you guys to remember your why. You're all on here because you know home ownership is important. If you're watching this later, I hope you know that too. If you have any doubts, we'll talk about how it builds wealth. In all transparency, I do not own a home right now. My husband and I are saving up. We can't really qualify for a loan right now because of our type of employment with commissions. It's a little weird. So we're saving up cash to buy a condo by the end of this year. So it's been crazy. We work hard. I don't get haircuts. I don't buy makeup. I don't eat out. Like, I am a stickler because we have that goal. We grew up, my husband and I, both with single moms. We had very broken families. We both grew up poor, and we don't want that. We want to be able to have the liberty to do what we want. We want to, next year after I buy this house, I'm going to have the freedom in my monthly payment to do more. I'm going to know that I have a place to go, even if all else fails. That's why we want it. So I want you guys to remember that too. Do you want a yard? Do you want to be able to paint your walls because you live in a dorm and you can't nail anything down? Did your family teach you about family legacy? It's so, so wise to do this. So just remember that as you're going along this path, because sometimes it gets hard. I'm the pilot helping you fly, but you're going to feel the turbulence with me. This is a statistic for how much more wealth homeowners have on average than someone who does not own a home. That's all, 40x. That's insane. Even for people that make under $26,000 a year, if you own a home, your net worth is about $103,000 more than someone who doesn't in that same income bracket. So don't think you can't do it. In America right now, the average tax refund pays for about half of the down payment in Florida. So don't make excuses. About me, I'm servant-hearted. I kind of grew up in the industry, so my mom was in real estate before the crash. She was a single mom, like I said. I went to school for art history, not for anything like we're talking about. I was a gallery director at an art firm here in Orlando, actually in Winter Park, which is right north of us, where Lawrence works. And I loved it, loved what I did. I was talking with artists from all over the world, planning events, presenting in Rome, presenting at the Orlando Museum of Art. It's me in Rome, me little aunt right there. I loved what I did. The company was not very good. I remember reaching out to Leslie too, and I was like, girl, I'm struggling. The morals were just not good. I'd have to walk out of the room sometimes because of the lies my CEO would say. I had artists calling me crying because I would sell a $10,000 piece and they wouldn't get paid because my CEO would just spend it on other things and then lie about it. There was attorneys knocking on the door, and I was like, what do I do? But at the time I was cash flowing my wedding. I was getting married in 2 weeks. I had been applying to jobs. They all said I was overqualified, and I said, I don't care. But they did. And one day I just got on my knees and I said, God, I don't know what door needs to open, but if it's above Taco Bell pay grade, I will do it. And then the next day I go in to work, and at like noon on a Wednesday, my boss's husband comes in and says, hey, I've been told to let you go today. I don't know why, but I've been told to let you go. And I was like, here's my key. Here are my sticky notes. Can I have time to clear my desk? Do you need me to finish planning the event I have on Friday because a sculpture artist from Spain is coming in? And he was like, I haven't thought that far ahead. And I was like, great. Again, 2 weeks before my wedding. So I left. It turns out I got laid off along with 2 other people that day. Within a month, the company was underwater. There was lawyers everywhere. The gallery was done. So God said, I need a closed door, right? Because I wasn't going to leave. I needed the money. I just did. Like, I couldn't leave without having another job. So everything went well. And then my pastor was like, you should do real estate. Your mom did it. You're so good at it. As a little girl, you wanted to do it. And I said, I don't know. And then I tried it, talked to a bunch of mentors, and now I'm in love with it. I love hustling. I love overachieving and working hard and helping people the right way, because so many people in this industry don't. And it's a hard industry. People go like, oh, I can do it myself. And I'm like, it's so difficult to do what we do well and to really have someone you trust. So I do new construction. I do resales, which is what you think of typically for a home. I do Orange, Osceola, Seminole, and Lake County, primarily in Florida. I can do everywhere. I obviously went to high school in Boca, down south, but I've lived in Tampa and now I live in Orlando. I do listings. I can do referrals. So if you guys need anyone, if you're in North Carolina, I know agents in North Carolina. I know the best ones. And I have a database of actual statistics that realtors can see that shows who's good, even on certain streets, certain neighborhoods. I can pair you up with someone that's perfect for you, and I can vet them before you need to. So always contact me. Even if you just have a normal question, I can try to help you before you get into the process. I also, people like me, we're going to breeze past that. Find me online. So I want you to keep in touch with me too. There's some information here. There's my email, my cell. That's literally my direct cell. I don't have a work number because I never stopped working. It's kind of not good, but it is what it is. Follow me on Instagram and on Facebook, either or. I post a lot of updates even throughout the year that you'll need, like, hey, file this. Oh, file this. Oh, remember to do this. Oh, here's the market. It's really helpful. And I think I'm semi-entertaining enough to not hate scrolling past me. So follow me. And there's my website. There's my husband. We are both in real estate. We're on the same team. Obviously, that's our last name. And we are one of the top producing teams at our brokerage. So that's all I have. I'm sorry that I took almost an hour. If we go over, I hope that's okay. But yeah, does anyone have questions for me, or do we want to say those to the end? I don't want to take up too much time before Lawrence says his piece. But if anyone's like dying to ask something, we might. All right, I think I can make Lawrence the host then, so that he can start just doing a pre-approval clause. Does anyone know how I make someone else my host? Participants? Haha. Okay, Lawrence, you are now the host.
All right. Let me jump on and see if I can share my screen. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. First of all, Savannah, you are a freaking rock star, girl. Let me tell you, your drive is unbelievable, and I love it. And guys, I know you guys have probably heard of the 80-20 rule, right? So normally in the industry, about 80% of the production is done by the top 20% of the agents or the salespeople. In real estate, I would say it's probably closer to like a 95-5. You're going to find out really quickly that there's a very, very, very small elite group of professionals in our industry, and Savannah is definitely in that group. I knew the time I met Savannah, and just so you guys know, I've been doing mortgages. This is my 26th year in the mortgage business, so I can tell you that I'm qualified to spot good talent. I've seen people come and go in this business, and Savannah's here to stay. Her passion is, it's exciting. I love it. I just love it. You remind me of, I don't know if you guys, I'm going to age myself here, but if you guys have seen the movie Days of Thunder, it's a racing movie with Tom Cruise. If you haven't watched it, go rent it. It's a great movie, but his name in that movie was Cole Trickle, and he was this young race car driver that they knew was going to be great, and ended up being great. And that's Savannah. So Savannah, thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. And you're the best too, and I'll talk you up after you're done too. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. So I'm gonna kind of zip through some things with you guys. Let me make sure that there we go. All right. So again, 25 years in the business, guys. I'm a married man. I'm happily married. I've got 2 wonderful kids. I've got 3 dogs. I love doing what I do. I wouldn't have picked a career that I wasn't going to be really good at, and that I wasn't going to also be able to help people. I can tell you this, there's a lot of jobs, a lot of careers out there that are gratifying, but I don't know of many that are as gratifying as ours, because buying a home is really, truly a life-changing thing that happens. And I'm so excited to be able to help my clients with this. So I wanted to give you guys this little chart right here and show you. And this has actually a little bit of personal sentimental value to me. So this was a client that came to me about probably 6-7 years ago. They lived in this house, and this is what they were paying in rent for the house when they came to me. Well, while they were renting the house, the owners came up to them and said, "Hey guys, I'm sorry, I got bad news, but we're going to sell the house. So we'll give you first right to buy it. If you want to buy it, here's what we're going to sell it for. It's up to you guys. Otherwise, you're going to have to find another place to stay." Well, these people were like super like seated into this community. They loved the school district. Their kids went to. Their kids had a lot of friends in the neighborhood. And so it meant a lot to them. So they called me. They said, "Lawrence, we don't know if we can qualify to buy this house, but man, if you could make this happen, this would just be so huge for our family." So we did. And in fact, when it was all said and done, you can see there what their mortgage payment was. I think this is so relevant today, because those of you that are renting know how much you're paying in rent. And chances are it's a lot, and it's a very little amount of space that you have. And in most cases, when we show people what they can afford to buy with the same amount that they're paying in rent, it's staggering to them. They can't believe it. So just a really cool story. They stayed in the house. They keep in touch with me, and they're super grateful for that. All right, so a couple of things I'm going to talk to you guys about today is home ownership as an investment. All right, we're going to touch on all of these things here: social benefits, long-term investment, appreciation, home equity, tax deductions, and deductible expenses. So let's kind of jump right into it. So some of the social benefits of buying a house. Well, we're going to start off with a sense of accomplishment, okay? And I love statistics. I know Savannah does as well. So the graduation rate for children of homeowners is 19% higher than for renters. And they are twice as likely to acquire some post-secondary education. This is a study done by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. New generation of homeowners, I just love to throw this in there. So 1 in 3 millennials under the age of 35 owned a home at the end of 2018, all right? So we're seeing a younger generation that is coming in and buying houses now. You guys are smart, you're well educated, you understand what I'm telling you. You understand the benefits, not only financially, but even socially, of buying a house. Sense of community, the housing industry is closely tied to the economy. So when home sales are up, so are jobs. Together, these forces create a more stable local, state, and national economy. I don't think we've seen anything to the contrary with this, especially lately. When the housing market is thriving, the job market is thriving. When the housing market goes down, jobs go down. Okay, this is always going to be tied in, and it's so true today, especially. So, financial education. The National Association of Realtors in 2018 reported that 16% of non-homeowners believed they would have difficulty qualifying and a mortgage due to lack of financial knowledge, and 13% said they wouldn't know the first step in the process. All right, that's why you guys are on this call. A lot of people just don't think that they can buy a house. They don't believe that they can qualify. Maybe it's their credit, maybe it's their income, okay? And the key to success in buying a house, the key to success in everything, as we know, is education, right, guys? So we're glad you're on this call. We're glad you're watching this. This is the first step in the process, is getting to know how to buy a house, and also getting to know that it's possible, okay? Lower crime rate. This is a cool stat. I just threw this in there because I thought it was cool. The overall decrease in crime statewide in Florida can be attributed to a nearly 14% decrease in total property crime in neighborhoods with homeowners spanning from January to June 2020. So what does that mean? Well, the way I look at it is, if you're a homeowner, you're in all likelihood going to live in an area that's safer, right? Makes sense? And really cool. So let's talk about appreciation. Okay, what appreciation is it represents the increase in your home value over time. Okay, so Savannah touched on this. She showed some statistics over time, how houses have appreciated, even when we look at the big crash. Okay, and look, I understand a lot of our younger generation today, they saw their parents go through a really rough patch, right? And man, homes were lost, equity was lost, appreciation not only slowed down, went backwards. But you got to keep in mind, guys, that buying a house is something that you look at as a long-term investment, okay? And that's where you're always going to be safe over time. There's really not much safer investments than buying a house. So every metro area tracked by the National Association of Realtors witnessed home price growing from a year ago, with 88% of metro areas seeing double-digit price increases. Wow, how cool is that, right? Orlando home values have increased. Savannah even pointed out today's median price of $313,000 is 15.8% higher than it was a year ago. So for those of us that own homes, man, we're loving life right now, right? We're seeing great increases in values. We're seeing it's just a nice time in the industry, and to buy and to own a home. Existing home sales fell 6.6% in February, but sales are still 9.1% higher than last year. That's pretty cool, right? So year over year, we're 9.1% higher. This marks 108 straight months of year over year gains. That's pretty awesome, right? So we're looking at the big picture here. All right, let's talk about home equity. So this represents the difference between how much you owe and how much the market value or the value of your home is, okay? So equity is kind of like a bank account. So if you have equity in your house, it doesn't mean that you have to use it, and that number may go up or down as values go up or down, but equity is where you put money in the bank, okay? So one day when you go to sell your house, you're going to recognize that equity at that point. You're going to make the money on your house. So appreciation, as we talked about, is a change in the value of your home over time, where home equity is the difference between the balance of your mortgage and your home's market value. Now let's talk about capital gains exclusion. So this is a really cool thing. When you have this equity in your home appreciates in value, it gives you equity. Well, when you go to sell the house, this is one of the only things that you can sell and make a profit on and not have to pay taxes, okay? And this is called your capital gains. Your capital gains. So if you own a home for 2 out of the last 5 years, and you go to close on that home, you don't pay taxes up to $250,000 if you own a home by yourself, or up to $500,000 if you're married. So I know people that will actually buy a home every 2 to 5 years, live in it for 2 years, sell it, gain the profit out of that house, and then do it again and again and again. And over time, this is a great way to make tax-free income, basically, is in essence what you're doing. All right, let's talk about the tax deductions certain expenses you pay when owning a home are tax deductible. So these can be part of your closing costs. It's also going to be your mortgage interest and your real estate taxes. So this includes mortgage interest and real estate taxes on both your primary residence and a second home, which can amount to thousands of dollars per year. So listen, if you own a home and you go to file taxes, you are going to have a huge tax deduction. And we all know how important that is. Okay, regardless of your income bracket, regardless of who's in the White House, being able to save money on taxes is always a good thing, right? Interest on a home equity loan is also tax deductible if the funds are used to improve your home. So that's really cool too. You take out a home equity line, you add a pool, you add a mother-in-law suite or summer kitchen, a cabana, all of those things, you're going to be able to actually deduct the interest you pay on that home equity loan when it comes tax time. All right, now let's talk a little bit about qualifying for a loan. So I'm not going to get super deep into this, guys. I can tell you this, when you're ready to buy, that's a great time to call me. Let's talk about your situation. Let's see exactly where you guys are at as far as your income, your assets, and your credit. And then I'm gonna pave that path for you to buy. Whether you're ready now, let's do it. If you're not ready, I'll go over what you need to do to get ready and then put you into Savannah's arms and out there shopping for homes, okay? So this is the basic list of documents that we do need. And this is universal, guys, okay? You're gonna hear of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. We follow the same guidelines. Every lender, every bank follows the exact same guidelines to get our clients approved for financing. So this is going to be your basic package. We're going to look at your tax returns. We're going to get pay stubs to show how much you're making. We're going to look at your bank statements to see how much money you have in there. Also, the bank statements, we're going to look to see if there's any large deposits in there. So if you had, let's say, a relative that decided to give you some money to buy a house and you deposit it in your bank statement, well, we're going to want to show that paper trail of where that money came from. We're going to want to see all the assets that you're using to buy the house. It could be a 401k. Maybe you've got stocks, bonds. So whatever that vehicle is that you're using to buy the house, we're going to want to see the paperwork on that. We're going to want to identify you. We're going to want to see who you are, your driver's license, and then any explanation letters for your credit, your large deposits, gaps in employment. So when we go to submit a loan to underwriting, we want to tell the full story of who you are, where you've been, how you got to where you got, and anything in between. And I'll tell you, that's the key to success. And that's one of the things I love doing. It's one of the things I'm really good at. And it separates me from maybe, a bank or Quicken Loans or whoever else is out there. So let's talk about credit. Credit's always a great topic, right? A lot of you guys are probably working on your credit, establishing credit. I love credit. I've been looking at credit reports for 26 years, guys. So I can tell you thousands and thousands and thousands, and I look at them every single day. Sometimes a good place to start is get a Credit Karma. If you don't even know where your credit scores are, go sign up for Credit Karma. It doesn't pull your credit. It's going to give you 2 scores. Now, they are consumer scores, so they're not the same scores we're going to look at, but it's a good starting point to kind of see where you're at. Now, where do you want to be? Well, we want to get you above 640. That's our goal, okay? 640 opens up a lot of doors. It's going to allow you to qualify for, whether it's a down payment assistance program or a specialized program like USDA. The interest rates get better. The higher your score is, the lower the interest rate is. All right. So sometimes we're going to start off by looking at your scores, and let's say you need some work. Well, man, if we can get you up, let's say above 700, that's where the real magic happens. That's where you're looking at those good low interest rates that Savannah was talking about. Just so you guys know, I quoted a rate today. A client with really good credit score was right at 3% on a 30-year fixed. Right. So they're still amazing. I mean, guys, I waited my whole life to see rates this low, and yeah, they dipped down into the 2s for a short period of time last year. But if we're still in the low 3s, man, that is huge buying power for you. All right. Sometimes if your credit is really bad, that's okay. listen, here's the cool thing about credit. It heals over time, okay? But what you have to do is you have to start putting yourself in a position where you can get your scores up. You're going to have to establish good credit, okay? It's not only looking at the past with credit, it's looking at where you're at right now, and where you're going, okay? So we need to establish credit, and that's something I can help you guys with if need be. All right, and that's it, guys. I did the quick and dirty tonight for you guys. I wanted to just hit on some of the basics. So hopefully you've got some questions, and I'd love to help from there. So I'll stop sharing. And
then Lawrence, I have some questions for you that I think people may benefit from before we head into the ones in the chat. So I want to talk about, because a lot of these people in here are either in college or just got out and might not have 2 years of tax returns or 2 years of pay stubs. So can you talk about the work experience?
Sure, absolutely. Underwriting basically looks for 2 years. However, there is a big exception to that, and that's if you're going to school and if you graduate. Ideally, underwriting wants to see that you're working in some sort of field that's related to your degree. What we use instead of W-2s and tax returns in that case is we actually get a copy of your college transcripts, and we show underwriting that you've been spending the last 2 years or 4 years, whatever it is, working on your education, and now you've got your job. And as long as it's a job that we can verify income, not a self-employed situation or a 1099 situation, but rather a W-2, like a base salary type of job, that's going to be where we're going to be able to plug you right in and get you qualified potentially to buy a house.
And then just very briefly go over the 3 main types, that just VA, FHA, conventional, just to talk like very briefly about qualifications.
Absolutely. So conventional is the most widely used program, okay? I would say about 80% of all clients end up with a conventional loan. This is going to be your better credit clients. This is going to be people who can verify income and have what's called our debt to income ratios are in line with, you know, they're a little bit lower than what the other programs are going to allow. It's very credit score driven as far as the interest rates are concerned, and even qualifying. So you're generally looking for, let's say, 680 plus credit scores for the conventional loan program. Now, FHA is a good first-time home buyer type of program. It does allow a lower credit score. You're going to be required to put 3.5% down with that program. Conventional, by the way, actually has variations that will allow 3% down. VA is for our veterans or active military. So anybody who served in the military can qualify for a VA loan. It does offer 100% financing. And then USDA is another great program. This is for somebody who's interested in buying a property out in a rural area. And USDA also offers 100% financing. You have to have a 640 or better credit score to qualify for that. So that's a basic quick and dirty on the loan programs.
Perfect. And then I'll read you the questions because a lot of them are about rates. One says, are rates expected to increase over the next couple years?
Good question. The old crystal ball. All right, so let's talk about that. I look at interest rate reports every single day. So I'm very, very clued into what rates are doing. Our biggest enemy with interest rates is inflation. So right now, what they are saying is that there is some inflationary pressure and inflationary concerns on interest rates. So the prediction is that rates will climb in the next few months. Chances are we're going to look at rates possibly as high as the upper 3s by fall time of this year. Now, this is predictions. We don't know, guys. They could stay exactly where they're at for the whole year. However, the prediction then is that they're going to stay in the 3s and possibly even come back down to the levels that we're at now, or even possibly record lows again sometime within the next couple of years. So all good news. Listen, you're going to see fluctuations, right? You're going to see rates go up and down. It could be as much as a half a point, 3/4 of a point. Even within a week or a month's time, you can see those types of fluctuations. If anything, if your rate starts with the number 3 or below, be blessed, because that's incredible. And as long as they're in the threes, I think we're all going to be in good shape and happy moving forward.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, and then Nada asked me, what is the range to pay a realtor for closing? So buyer's agents don't pay me. The sellers pay me, and that rate is dependent upon what the listing agent and the seller have agreed upon, negotiated upon. That's what they pay me, and then obviously my broker takes stuff. I don't know if you're asking for yourself, or if you're asking like, oh, like if I had to hire one, or hey, if I want to become a realtor, what do I make? It all depends. It's negotiable, but the buyer doesn't have to worry about any of it. It comes out of the seller's proceeds. Okay, and then Karen says, how do student loans affect our ability to qualify for a mortgage? So you want to talk about DTI a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Actually, every single loan program looks at student loans a little differently too. So that's a really good question. Without getting too much into detail, we're going to look at what the monthly minimum payment is that you're paying on your student loan. Now, if your student loan is deferred, it doesn't mean that you get a free pass. Okay, in a lot of cases, we need to see what the payment plan would be after they come out of deferment. Okay, so we're going to look at what the payment eventually will be. It might be an income-based repayment plan. It could be an amortized plan over a certain period of time. It could be just a percentage of the total amount of student loans that you have. So there's a lot of variations with this. It's really a case-by-case basis, because we need to look at your credit score. We need to look at what loan program we're ultimately going to plug you in at or with, and then we can figure out how much the student loan monthly minimum payment is that we need to calculate and throw in there. That ultimately will determine what you qualify for. Savannah had mentioned earlier about, how much you qualify for. Just so you guys know, you actually don't qualify for a sales price. You actually qualify for a payment amount. So when we talk to clients, we're going to look at how much that payment you can afford, and then we're going to look at how much of payment you would like to budget. And that sort of gives us a range of sales prices that we can fit you into. And it's great because, like Savannah was saying, you might qualify for a $300,000 house that you didn't think you could ever buy because maybe the taxes or the homeowner's insurance is a little lower on that house. So the total payment fits into your budget. So that just wanted to explain that as well.
Yeah, and Lawrence, a plug for you. Lawrence's team has this awesome little calculator, and if you look up like mortgage calculator online, that's like not the best way to do it, and it doesn't include everything. But Lawrence's calculator, you type in the details of the house, and it'll estimate what everything is for you. It'll calculate the taxes, the amortization rate, the average insurance for that home, so that you can actually see what your monthly payment would be. So it's really, really helpful. He's the only one that has that. I don't know if he just says that, but he's the only one I've ever seen that has that. So
we are. And the big thing you left out, Savannah, is that it also tells you whether you qualify for that house.
Yes.
And that you can create your own pre-approval letter right on the spot, which is super cool.
It has helped me so many times on the fly. I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
Okay. And then for Nada's question, so she was asking about the range to pay a realtor at closing. So she's asking for a seller. So a seller, again, you negotiate. It's different, and there's no flat rate. You can always negotiate. It depends on what the agent is going to offer you and what they're going to pay for. So always, if you're talking to a listing agent, I do a lot for my listings, right? I hire a stager. I hire people to come in and do professional photography, videos, drone photography, all this stuff. So, and I hire a lot of marketing materials. That's different than someone who's just going to come out, put something in your yard and put it on the MLS. People like that typically are much more apt to negotiate lower on their commissions because they know they're not doing much. But I come in and I'll ask for a certain percentage, half of it goes to me, half of it goes to the buying agent. And they see that before they come to the house, the agent sees what they're going to get. So if it's a higher, it's going to entice them to sell your house better, right? Okay. And then Kristen asked about refinancing, so get ready. Is it possible to refinance a mortgage rate if rates do get lower later?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we're doing a ton of refinances right now. We got to look at the numbers. We got to make sure that it makes sense for you to refinance. There is a cost to refinance. A lot of our clients will just roll that into the loan amount. You can do that on a refinance. You can't do that on a purchase, guys. So just so you understand, on a purchase, you have the down payment that you have to come up with, plus the buyer's closing costs. So when we talk figures with you, we're gonna add those two numbers together and let you know how much money you'll need for closing in that case.
And I want to briefly mention PMI. You'll hear that a lot. It's private mortgage insurance. What that is if you don't put down 20%, so if it's 20 or less, you have to pay the loan company to insure your loan, right? So that's like $150 a month, depends on the house, but it's a few $100 a month that you're going to have to add to your payment because you didn't put down a lot of money. So it might not be that big of a deal to you, but try to get to that 20% as quickly as possible. With a conventional loan, then the PMI goes away. With an FHA loan, it's over the life of the loan. So once you get to that 20%, you'll probably want to refinance to get that PMI off if you're able to.
Yep.
Okay. Someone says, it's a long one. You can probably read it too. Kristen says, are debts and outstanding loans weighted differently than calculating debt to income and other relevant calculations in underwriting? For example, school loans are good debt and credit cards are bad debt. So credit card debt is weighted more negatively.
No, the good news is no, they're all weighed the same. What we're looking at is monthly minimum payments on anything that shows up on your credit report. Okay, so this is going to be installment loans, which could be your car, your jet ski. It's going to be personal loans, like signature loans, like, you know, Best Egg or something. If you take out a consolidation loan, it's going to be credit cards. It's going to be student loans. And then if you have any mortgages, then it would be your mortgage. That's the basic collection of debt that shows up on your credit reports. We're looking at monthly minimum, and it doesn't matter whether it's a car that you're paying or a credit card. We're just going to add up all that monthly debt and figure out your debt to income ratio from there.
Yeah. And then just another plug to Lawrence. If you guys are listening to him, I don't know if you guys have ever talked to a loan officer, but I have won deals because I have a pre-approval from Lawrence's firm, because people trust them. They do hardcore vetting. They have an amazing pre-approval system. They don't charge any crazy, ridiculous fees. They're good, and they're willing to help you understand things. And some loan officers won't do that. They also always have someone on call. They're just the best. So I know you probably don't have a lot of experience with a lot of different people in our industry, but Lawrence and I kind of rock. So we're just good to people. Okay. And then Desi, sorry if that's not how you pronounce that. Working on credit, what are some good credit lines to add besides secured credit cards and CD loans?
Yeah, so Desi, I would say, you know, this would be a good situation for me to look at what you're working on, because it's not really an answer I can tell you. Generally speaking, if you're trying to build credit, credit cards work great. A lot of times you got to start with what's called a secured credit card, right? So this is one where you actually pay the credit card company. It's almost like a deposit, and that deposit will go towards your credit limit. So you give them $300, $500. They set your credit limit at that $300 or $500, and then you start using that card, paying it off, using it, paying it off. That's how you start to establish credit, guys. It's making timely payments, and it's showing the lender that you have the ability to borrow money and pay it back. Okay. So it's not just, hey, yeah, I have clients that never had a late payment in their history because they never borrowed money. Well, they can't buy a house because they haven't established credit. So you got to borrow some money and pay it back. That's how you establish good credit. But Desi, if you want to send me your contact information after the call here, I'll be happy to set up a call with you. I do Zoom calls with clients all the time where I have them share their screen and look at their Credit Karma together with them. And I'll be able to give you some good advice on how to get your scores up as high as possible.
Great. And then Kristen, okay, she says for escrow, since it's taken out of the deposit, does the deposit need to be higher to cover escrow? Because technically if escrow is part of the deposit, then the deposit isn't actually 20%. So I'm going to explain how it's written in the contract, and I think that'll help you understand. So in the contract, when you write it up to present to the seller, it says, okay, what is the purchase price? What is escrow? What is the remaining balance to close? And what is the financing amount? So what I do to write it in that thing, if it's 300 grand, you put 5K escrow, but you want to put 10,000 down. Okay, great. Then it's only 5,000 more as balance to close. So it still comes out of the same thing. It's a pool of money, and you put some in escrow, you take the rest for closing costs, and then all of it at the same time gets given to the seller. Does that answer your question? I think it does. I hope that helps. Just let me know if it doesn't, and if I need to clarify anything. Yes, okay, perfect. Awesome. Yeah, and Lawrence, tell them where you work and how you can help them if they're not in Florida too.
Yeah, absolutely. So the company I'm with is called The Mortgage Firm. I'm a branch manager here in Winter Park. I've got my own branch. I just chatted my email address and my cell phone number. You guys are welcome to reach out either way. Now, if you have yourself or a relative or somebody's looking to relocate out of state, or they just want to buy a house in the state they're in that's not Florida, then I can definitely help them. I literally know people in the business in every single state in America. So I'd be happy to make a great referral on that as well.
Perfect. All right. And then could you make Shannon the host again? Just, I don't know if that's important for recording or anything, but unless anyone has any more questions, our information is in the chat. I know we went over a little bit, but it's a big process. So this is, like you said, the quick and dirty. So if you want more, we can obviously chat more. Just let us know. We have some open calendars. We can jump on a call together with you or separate. But yeah, it was a pleasure being here with you, and go George Snow.
Thank you guys so much.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you both for coming out tonight and volunteering your time to share this information with everyone. I mean, it's so useful, even to myself, because I'm, gonna need to buy a house somewhere down the line, and definitely will be referencing this video. And I will be uploading this video to YouTube and sharing it with you all. So if you want to go back to it later on down the line, you can definitely rewatch. But yeah, thank you so much. I don't believe I'm the host yet. I don't know if that would matter because I'm recording this locally. I think if I just end the meeting, then it will save locally.
I think it will.
Okay. Then I think
Thank you guys so much. That was incredible. That was just a great amount of information for everybody, and you answered, you hit on everything. So, and I'm glad you put your contact information in there. And we really appreciate you guys donating your time. That was wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, our pleasure.
Yeah.
Yep.
And everybody have a wonderful night. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you guys.